Hi, my name is Miriam.
Hi, my name is Will.
Today we'll be discussing two films, Cairo Time and Sabah, by the Canadian Arab filmmaker Ruba Nada.
Ruba Nada was born in Canada to a Palestinian mother and Syrian father. In regards to her films, Nada states that she wants her movies, especially the endings, to stay with people long after the credits have rolled.
After watching these two films, two themes became evident. Religion, particularly in the context of interfaith relationships, and the status of women in the Arab world.
Nada works hard to show viewers alternative perspectives on these two themes in understated ways. She triggers thoughts on these major themes using both key scenes and character development.
So we'll start by discussing the theme of religion, one that presents itself in both films. However, it does play a larger role in the plot of Sabah.
Sabah, produced in 2005, is set in Toronto. It tells the story of Sabah, a 40-year-old unmarried Muslim woman.
Sabah's family dynamic is tight-knit. Since her father passed away, she spends most of her time taking care of her mother, while her brother Majid has stepped up to be the man of the household.
Sabah also had a close relationship with her progressive thinking niece, Suhair. Sabah decides one day to get back into swimming, an old hobby she shared with her late father.
Immediately we see the effects of religion in Sabah's life, from always leaving the house with her hijab or headscarf, to buying a bathing suit in secret to hide it from her brother Majid. She finally takes a step out of her comfort zone in going to a local mixed-gender pool. However, the man she does encounter happens to catch her eye. Beginning by accidentally using her towel, Stephen, a divorced carpenter from Sudbury, Ontario, charms her with his kind demeanor and respectful attitude.
Sabah begins to spend more and more time out of her house, and this begins to cause tension, particularly with Majid, her brother, who has now assumed the fatherly role in the house. He even goes so far as to buy her a cell phone to ensure he has contact with her at all times.
As the relationship progresses, Sabah does her best to explain to Stephen why her family can't know about him. It's simply just not allowed in her religion for a woman to marry a non-Muslim man.
Her brother, Majid, however, is married to a non-Muslim woman.
Stephen, who is patient at first, becomes frustrated with the circumstances. More on behalf of Sabah, he becomes clearly irritated that she has trouble standing up for the decisions that she has every right to make as an adult.
Sabah finally comes out of her family about her affair with Stephen, where Majid declares that if she wants to be with him, she could no longer be a part of the family.
But earlier in the film, Majid had made his stance extremely clear on women marrying someone other than who the men in the family chose. He told this to Suhair when she proposed that she wanted to fall in love rather than be involved in an arranged marriage.
Now, Sabah finds herself having to choose between her family and Stephen. She packs her bags to leave when her lovely mother insists on meeting Stephen. Her other sisters convince her to take another shot to talking to her brother.
During her conversation with Majid, she finds out for the past 8 years that he's been financially supporting the family because the money that was left by her father had ran out. We start to see the emotional side of Majid come out as he confides in her about the sacrifices he's been making for the family. And we begin to see that maybe his clinging to his faith could be rooted in the fact that he might want to make his father proud in the only way that he knows how.
They realize something has to change. And once Sabah's mom gives Stephen the stamp of approval, we see him again a warm welcome into the family as Majid consolidates his own feelings and his issues with his own marriage.
We see throughout the film that Sabah is clearly distressed by her internal conflict of religion and her love affair. Along with this, we've had the privilege of seeing her character develop into a woman who isn't afraid to speak her mind and stand up for herself.
From being a woman too shy to swim in public, to a woman who goes on dates with her forbidden lover, tastes wine for the first time, and even goes so far to sleep with Stephen outside of marriage, we see her begin to free herself from the confines of her religion.
Ruba Nada seems to be sending us a clear message here. One should always do what makes them happy beyond what others think that they should do. One thing to note, however, was the change in Sabah's level of happiness throughout the film. Even noted by her family, it was clear that she was a lot happier when she finally found someone that piqued her interest after being single for so long.
Religion played a significant role in their relationship. Although Stephen was willing to convert and took it upon himself to learn about Islam, the real barrier lied with Sabah.
The perception of herself and her family in the Muslim and Arab community, and her fear of being ostracized in her decision almost led her to let go of the first man that she's ever fell in love with. Clearly with good intentions, I think she was just worried about how her family would be treated if they accepted this.
We can see how the line between culture and religion becomes blurry. One thing that is important to note is that Sabah never speaks about abandoning her religion. She remains modest in public and doesn't seem to deeply question the rules that are preventing her from being with Stephen.
I think it's up to interpretation whether or not this means she still holds the religion to a high value in her life or whether she's simply too scared to let go of it completely. Personally, I think she's just found a happy medium between satisfying her cultural and religious desires with her own personal ones. Will, what do you think?
Well, I think she may be a little worried to abandon religion completely, or she doesn't see a need to explore why the rules are there. She simply just wants to focus on her relationship with Stephen.
Interesting. All in all, we see the progression of a shy and timid Sabah into a woman who was able to bring home a non-Muslim man to her conservative family.
Ruba Nada highlighted beautifully how overcoming prejudice against faith or ethnicities creates a positive atmosphere.
From Majid rekindling his love with his wife to a happier mother and a happier niece, the overall impact of Stephen being accepted into their family was clearly positive.
Her film was tasteful in demonstrating a sweet love story that was able to overcome some serious obstacles.
Now on to Cairo time. Although religion does not play a huge role in this film, Nada did touch on it slightly when it was revealed that the man Juliet was developing feelings for, Tariq, who also happened to be a colleague of her husband, previously had a love affair with a Christian Armenian woman by the name of Yasmin.
Yasmin, now widowed, bumps into Tariq and Juliet while in Cairo and invites them to her daughter's wedding. We clearly see that she's still interested in pursuing Tariq. However, when confronted by Juliet, Tariq claims that it would never work.
Yasmin's role in this film was not highly significant, but it does highlight the overall theme of forbidden love. In her case, stemming from religion, and in the case of Tariq and Juliet, stemming from loyalty and being faithful to your significant other. It appears as though even after being married and widowed, Tariq still holds a place in Yasmin's heart. Yasmin must have developed strong feelings for him for it to have lasted this long.
Yeah, I think it's great that Nada briefly touched on this topic in Cairo Time, as she brings to light the impacts that religion can have on life choices of those in the Arab world. Widowed and single, Yasmin and Tariq may have led very different lives should they have chose to live together.
It's worth noting, though, that in Islam, a man can marry a non-Muslim woman. However, Tariq may have had other reasons, possibly pertaining to shaming through culture, to not pursue Yasmin.
Both of these films highlight the impact both religion and culture have in one's life, and the consequences of basing life choices on expectations of others or self-expectations that have yet to be deeply explored.
All right, at this point, we're going to be taking a 1-minute commercial break.
Whoa. No. We only have 10 minutes. Ain't nobody got time for commercial. We're not doing that.
You can't tell me what to do. In the film, Sabah was brave enough to stand up for herself, so you know what? I think I'm going to exercise my rights here, too. We're going to take a break.
Well, you're absolutely right, but in fact, both films revolved their stories around female characters, and we were able to see Ruba Nada's way of representing women.
But before we dive in, I should define what representation actually is. And it's the way in which media constructs aspects of society, including age, gender, and identity. Of course, other aspects, but we're going to focus on those three in our discussion today.
In both films, Ruba Nada did not choose to portray a typical or traditional image of woman. Instead, she uses an alternative representation of woman. It's basically like...
Oh, come on. Don't act like you understand women well. Let me tell you something about Arab women.
Okay.
Arab women are supposed to be loyal to their husbands, loyal to their beliefs, and when they're married, they're given to their husbands, who are responsible for their safety and financial situations.
Oh, that sounds pretty nice. I'd like to marry an Arab man myself.
But wait, there's consequences to that. Oftentimes, because the men are financially responsible for these women in the household, they feel entitled to make decisions for the women as well.
This seems like a form of manipulation, because no amount of money can or should take away the autonomy of an adult woman. It seems women are often made to feel like burdens.
They are indeed, and when they are made to feel like burdens, it's not because they don't want to contribute to the household, but they may want to contribute in a way that the man doesn't allow, for example, working or getting educated.
Oh, so in the movie Sabah, Majid, her brother, assumes the role of the male figure of the household after the father has passed away, and Sabah is forced into staying at home and is responsible for her mother, right?
Exactly, and Sabah initially does submit to this role, but when her lover comes along, she begins to see the potential of life with more freedom.
In terms of character development, we see Sabah break out of the role of the typical submissive Arab woman.
I find it particularly interesting that Rubanetta decides to show her progression rather than just portray her as an already strong-minded woman from the get-go. We actually have the ability to see her grow into this woman and view firsthand the obstacles that she encounters.
I think it's pretty crazy that her family almost disowned her, even after meeting Stephen.
Yeah, and sadly this happens all the time in the Arab and Muslim households.
It was refreshing to see how at the end of the film, Ruba Nada constructed an atypical representation of the Arab woman. She was dating a non-Muslim man, lied about going out with Stephen, she drank wine, and she even slept at Stephen's house, which was against her religious beliefs and rules of her brother.
But we see that by the end of the film, she's even working with Majid, something that was not common to our previous typical idea of an Arab woman.
Well, in Cairo time, we see that Yasmin, a widowed Christian Armenian who was Tarek's former lover, was flirting with Tarek when she encounters Tarek and Julia at the airport. That's an atypical image of an Arab woman.
So we can also extend this alternative representation not only to Arab women, but to women in general. Juliet was portrayed initially as your typical married woman. She greeted Tariq in a friendly manner, trying to stay loyal to her husband, of course, and she was constantly worried about when he would arrive in Cairo.
But soon enough, Julia acts out of character of a traditional married woman as she slowly began to reveal interest for Tarek. Tarek was able to provide physical and psychological comfort for her in a completely foreign city.
And coupling with the dwindling romance with her husband, this just made the perfect recipe for an international love affair. And a part of the influence of her change was due to a woman named Catherine, who is also a wife of another UN worker who openly discusses her love affairs with an Egyptian man. Again, a non-traditional view of a woman.
So according to these two movies, we can see that Ruba Nada is excellent at showing the development of female characters, the struggle of seeking for balance between religion and culture, and one's personal happiness in the movie Sabah.
And the internal and external influence on Juliet in Cairo time allowed her to break out of her shell in an innocent romance with Tariq. Although it never did develop into anything more serious, she was able to enjoy her time waiting for her husband rather than constantly worrying about when he would arrive.
Well, we hope you enjoy our discussion today about these two beautiful films by Ruba Nada. I personally learned a lot about Arabic culture from these two films.
But Will, don't forget, these are Ruba Nada's constructions of reality on the Arab culture, but they don't necessarily represent it. So they're great grounds for having discussions like ours today.
All right, thank you for watching and have a good summer.